Hey everyone, to the video. Let's go over the 9-game NBA slate for today on Draftkings. But before we continue, as always, if you guys could just leave a like, and if new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. Also follow me over on Twitter. I'm at ChrisPennell16. And if you want to support me over on Patreon, it's seriously much appreciated. You can get access to any of the extra content that I put out every single night or every single week, just depending on the sport. My most favorite thing I'm doing right now is NASCAR. I look forward to NASCAR every single week. I do a whole bunch of stuff for that. I do article breakdowns, strategy, projections, GPP driver exposure, Discord chat, data sheet, rankings. I do a lot of stuff for NASCAR, so I'm very excited about that. Next race is on March 1st, so I am very excited. And if you guys want to check it out, you are welcome to do so. And if you're interested in the NBA stuff I do every single night, projections, my data sheet, cheat sheet, core plays, Discord chat, all that good stuff, links in the description below for my Patreon. And I think without further ado, let's get right into the video. So up top, we have James Harden. He comes at 11,300. Love the matchup for the Rockets here versus Memphis. I just love this game environment just in general. So there's not a total out yet, as I'm seeing right now, but I have to imagine the Rockets are going to have one of, if not the highest implied team total on the slate, going up against Memphis, one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA. And we also know that they like to play fast, as does Houston. Memphis is 7th in pace of play this season, while Houston is 5th. So this game should be a track meet. Both teams are pretty awful defensively. Head over to the DVP chart. Houston does rank, 6th or 7th, or I think like 7th worst, and Memphis ranks 6th worst. So both teams are awful defensively. Memphis does rank 29th versus shooting guard. So you gotta love the matchup for James Harden here. Now Russell Westbrook will be back in this game, so he's not going to be as like a super lock as he was in the last game when Russell Westbrook ended up getting scratched last minute as they were coming back from the memorial service for Kobe Bryant. He said he was out with a thumb injury. I think he was just taking the day off. But James Harden, he's fine. We know he's got the upside. He's scored at least 60 points in at least like the last 5 or 6 games. So he's in good form right now. And as long as he's hitting the shots, he should be able to pay off his salary. And on the year, he's at 1.62 points per minute with a 36.6% usage rate. I got nothing against James Harden. Love the matchup. Love the game environment. Have to imagine this total is going to be around 240. And it wouldn't surprise me if it is 240. So definitely like getting exposure to this game. Going down right below, we have Joel Embiid at 10,500. He absolutely went off in the last game. Ben Simmons was out, and they were playing Atlanta. Perfect storm, and he was like 9,500. Ended up scoring 79 fantasy points, I believe, 49 real life points. I couldn't even tell you how many rebounds. Maybe like 16 if I remember. But yeah, he went off. Now the problem is they priced him all the way up to 10,500. Now he's not going to score 80 points every single night, so don't think you're getting a 10x play, not a 10x, an 8x, around an 8x play by just locking in Joel Embiid, and you're going to take your 80 points and collect your check at the end of the day. It's not how it's going to work on most nights. Does he have the upside for that? For sure. And does he have a great matchup versus Cleveland? 100%. I mean, he should be able to smash Cleveland. Now, the problem is he's 10,500, and you got guys like Luka, Westbrook below him, and even Bradley Beal. But, man, I love Joel Embiid. I think he's a fine tournament option. You can play him in cash games, too. I think he's a safe bet for about 60 points, if not more, because, when Ben Simmons is off, he certainly gets a bump. If you look at his numbers on the season, he's at 1.5 points per minute with a 32.4% usage rate. But if you take Ben Simmons off the court, Joel Embiid's at a 36.7% usage rate and 1.66 points per minute. So definitely gets a sizable boost when you take Simmons off the court. Love the matchup versus Cleveland. Could this game get a little out of hand? It could, but it's only a 7.5 point spread, which I think is surprisingly a little low. So if this game stays close, Joel Embiid should have no problem getting over 60 fantasy points. And at 10,500, that's really not that bad. So certainly an option in all formats for tomorrow. Luka Doncic, he comes in at 10,300. He disappointed in the last game, but it really wasn't his fault. Really didn't need to play in the fourth quarter, considering they were blowing out Minnesota, which I did have as a little bit of concern heading into that game. But well, fortunately for myself, I actually pivoted off him to James Harden because Westbrook got ruled out, and I had enough flexibility in my lineup to do that. But I still thought Luka would pay off his price tag. Just only had 45 fantasy points, did not end up paying it off. But I like him to bounce back here versus San Antonio. They've struggled versus guards all season. If you head over to the DVP chart, San Antonio does rank 21st versus point guards and 21st versus shooting guards. So this is a good matchup either way for Luka Doncic. And the game environment's not great, but only a 5-point spread, so this game should be pretty close. And I expected to have one of the higher totals. Dallas always tends to get a higher total. And on the year, his numbers are amazing. 1.7 points per minute with the 37.3% usage rate. Nothing bad I can say about Luka. Triple-double threat every single night. And he's right up there with Harden as the top player of the slate and Joel Embiid. Russell Westbrook, I just realized they gave him an extra E. I mean, not an extra E, capital E for no reason, so I fixed that. Anyway, Russell Westbrook, he got a day off, so I assume he's going to be extra fresh here. And again, the only concern here would be if the game's a blowout, but, we've seen the Rockets. They'll play their studs in blowouts. They don't care. I know James Harden in the last game, the New York Knicks, they pulled all their starters, and James Harden's still in there chucking up threes, even though they're up 20. So they don't really care, but if Russell Westbrook can get over 35 minutes here, he should be able to smash Memphis. Now, he has cooled off a little bit from that real nice hot stretch he was on, but still, he's an excellent option. 10,100, still over 1,000 cheaper than James Harden, and they have similar upside. You got to love the game environment here on the year. 1.4 points per minute with a 34.2% usage rate. And if you go to the DVP chart, we know Memphis has struggled with guards all season, ranking 17th versus point guards and 29th versus shooting guards. So yes, Russell Westbrook, I think, is a fine option versus Memphis. Bradley Beal, 9,700. So he has back-to-back 50-point games, not fantasy point games, 50 real-life point games, and they've lost both games. I feel bad for the guy, but hey, he's the one who signed the contract, so can't feel too bad for him. But yeah, Bradley Beal, and I know a lot of people don't like playing him when he's close to 10K, which I don't really like to do that either. But when you're hot, you're hot. And I said the same thing with Kobe White last night, or this night, or tonight, whenever you're watching this video. He ended up scoring like 50 fantasy points. The guy's been on absolute fire, scored over 33 points again. I mean, the guy's just on absolute fire, and so is Bradley Beal. When you're hot, you're hot. So sometimes you just want to ride the hot hand, and you gotta want exposure to this game. It's got a 235 over/under, and the Wizards have 116.75 implied team total, only 1.5 point spread. Both teams are top 10 in pace of play, so this game should be pretty good for fantasy purposes, and I think Bradley Beal can have one of those ceiling games. Am I expecting him to get 50 real life points again? No. Is the upside there? Yes. He's pretty much the whole offense. And on the season, he's got a 34% usage rate, 1.32 points per minute. If you head over to the DVP chart, Brooklyn's actually not too bad versus shooting guards / small forwards. They rank 4th and 6th versus the position, but Bradley Beal is matchup proof. So I don't mind Bradley Beal at all in tournaments. Probably not going to get there in cash games just because, Westbrook's a lot safer than Bradley Beal in my opinion, because he does a lot more in the stat sheet. Triple-double threat. Bradley Beal's not really a triple-double threat most nights. You can always throw in. The problem is he doesn't really rack up the assists much because he's pretty much the only player that can score in that team. But yeah, they're both fine options. But I would side with Russell Westbrook if you're deciding between the two, even though they really play the same position. But I guess if you're just making a point of which one I would spend up for. So going down, we have Nikola Jokic at 9,500. He did not fare well in the last game. I believe that was versus Brooklyn. Did not end up playing that well. But I like him to bounce back here versus Atlanta. We just saw what Joel Embiid did versus Atlanta. Not saying Nikola Jokic is as good as Joel Embiid. Nikola Jokic is very good. I'm not saying he's bad or anything, but Joel Embiid's just got a higher ceiling than he does. But Nikola Jokic has been pretty consistent all season, and Atlanta is just a dumpster fire defensively. They still don't have Clint Capella back, so I expect them to keep getting beat up on the boards, and they do rank 28th versus centers. They're the worst defensive team in the league. It's a massive, massive pace-up spot for the Orlando Magic here. They are 29th in pace of play, which is second to last, and Atlanta is 4th. So none of the top 5. This is a massive pace-up spot for the Orlando Magic. And on the year, he's at 1.3 points per minute, 26% usage rate. Nothing bad I can say about Nikola Jokic besides him being pretty pricey, but the matchup versus Atlanta more than makes up for it, and they have 114 implied team total with only a 2.5 point spread. So Jokic is on my radar for GPPs. Julius Randle, he comes in at 8,400. He just gets that elite matchup versus Charlotte. We just saw Miles Turner get 44, 45 fantasy points versus these guys last night. And Julius Randle is certainly a better player than Miles Turner. No knock to Turner, but Julius Randle definitely has a higher ceiling. Now, he can be a little bit more hit or miss than I'd like him to be for his price tag. But he certainly had this. He's got a 60-point ceiling, and the matchup versus Charlotte, you gotta love it here. Now, this game environment's not going to be great. Both teams are pretty slow, and Charlotte's dead last in pace. But if you ever to the DVP chart, they're so bad defensively versus big men, right up there with Chicago. They're ranked 26th versus power forwards and 28th versus centers. So, yeah, you got to look at the matchup here for Julius Randle. On the year, he's got a 27% usage rate, over a point per minute. He's fine. Maybe not the best cash gameplay because of his price tag, but I do think he's fine in tournaments. and especially because he's a little bit hit or miss, so he's more suited for tournaments than cash games. Jimmy Butler, 8,200. There's optimism that he's going to play. I feel like he's going to play in this game, also going against his old team, Minnesota, so maybe he's going to really want to play if he wants revenge or anything, but yeah, I like him, 8,200. And also, Bam Adebayo is questionable. I guess he's got stitches below his eye. We'll see if he ends up playing. If Bam Adebayo is out and Jimmy Butler does play, certainly got to have some interest in Jimmy Butler for sure, 8,200. You take a guy like Bam off the court and just leave it up to Jimmy Butler. Yeah, definitely gets a boost for sure, 8,200. Love the matchup versus Minnesota. They are a dumpster fire defensively. And we have a 10-point spread, which isn't too massive, so I'm not really too worried about a blowout here, but we know Minnesota has the potential of getting blown out. They're not a very good team anymore, especially without Cat. And if you look at the pace-up spot here, they're 18th in pace-up play, while Minnesota is 3rd, so always like getting guys in pace-up spots. And Jimmy Butler is at 1.23 points per minute on the year, 25% usage rate. And if you head over to the DVP chart, Minnesota does rank 24th versus point guards, 25th versus shooting guards, and 24th versus small forwards. So very good matchup for Jimmy Butler. I think he's fine in all formats, and I think he's a pretty solid cash game play as long as he's a full go, and especially if Bam's out. Definitely like Jimmy Butler. DeAndre Ayton, so Kelly Oubre is going to miss this game, so you can just give the starters all bumps in the Phoenix lineup and also some of the secondary guys, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But you got to like DeAndre Ayton. He's going to play minutes in the mid-30s, and the Clippers, they actually are very soft defensively versus big men. If you head over to the DVP chart, they do rank 21st versus centers. That's the weakest spot on their defense, so I think DeAndre Ayton can have a field day down low versus them. I don't think he's going to be popular or anything, so he's probably better suited for tournaments, but definitely like his upside, and he should be pretty decently low-owned, and it's a 233 total. Definitely want exposure to this game. It's only a 5.5-point spread, so I'm not expecting the Clippers to blow these guys out, so I do like DeAndre Ayton quite a bit here. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Both teams are top 10 in pace of play. Numbers on the season are 1.23 points per minute with a 24% usage rate. But if you take Oubre off the court, DeAndre Ayton's at 1.29 points per minute with a 25.2% usage rate. So do like DeAndre Ayton in tournaments for sure. You could get away with it in cash games, but I feel like he's more of a tournament play. Spencer Dinwiddie, just because Kyrie Irving's out, comes in at 8K. He's always in play with Kyrie out. I think he's a safe bet for around 40 fantasy points here. And he gets an elite matchup versus Washington. I said I want exposure to this game, so here we go. And they have 118.25 implied team total, which is the highest as of right now. I believe the Rockets will beat that. Probably. They'll probably have like 122, 123 implied team total, but only 1.5 point spread here. Don't mind Spencer Dinwiddie at all. He's around 1.25 points per minute. Obviously, Karis LeVert takes away some of that because early in the year, Spencer Dinwiddie without Karis LeVert and Kyrie Irving at 8K, we'd still probably just lock him in versus Washington. Obviously, Karis LeVert's going to take a little bit away from Spencer Dinwiddie, but I think he's a fine option. Devin Booker, he comes in at 7,900. I thought this was a pretty cheap price tag for Devin Booker. So my rule of thumb for Devin Booker is whenever he's above 8K, he's always just a GBP play for me, only because he can be pretty volatile. But when he's below 8K, he enters the all format range for me. So I'm willing to play him in cash games just because it seems a little bit too cheap for Devin Booker. He's going to play big minutes every single night, and the guy's got insane upside. And I like the matchup versus the Clippers. It's going to be a pretty fast-paced game with a 233 over-under. So a lot of points are going to be scored here, tight spread. And if Phoenix wants to stay in this game, Devin Booker's going to have to have a big game along with DeAndre Ayton, but mostly Devin Booker. He's the main scorer on this team. On the year, 1.17 points per minute, 29.6% usage rate. If you take Kelly Oubre off the court, Devin Booker is at 1.29 points per minute with a 32.4% usage rate. So certainly gets a little bit of a boost there for sure. So don't mind Devin Booker at all below 8K. Aaron Gordon, I put him on here just because he's been on absolute fire. He's had multiple games of over 50 fantasy points recently, and you gotta like the matchup versus Atlanta. Anyone and everyone crushes versus Atlanta. Now, he is priced up, but he's been in recent form. I don't expect a lot of people to play him, so you could look at him in tournaments just because people don't love playing people on Orlando because it's the Magic. They're a pretty gross team overall, but you gotta like the matchup versus Atlanta. Pace up spot, I already talked about that. They rank pretty much last at every single position defensively besides point guard, but yeah, got to have some interest here on the season. He's at 0.95 points per minute, 21% usage rate, but he has been playing really well recently, so I like the recent form that he's in, and that's why I'm going to bring him up. Tobias Harris, he comes in at 7,500. Got to love the matchup versus Cleveland. Only a 7.5 point spread, but is pretty encouraging for me, and if you take Ben Simmons off the court, Tobias Harris is at a 1.05 points per minute with a 24.2% usage rate. Pretty strong numbers here. I think it's a fair price tag. I think he can get you over 40 fantasy points. I really do, especially versus Cleveland. They're just so bad defensively. DVP chart, I think they're second worst overall. They're ranked 28th versus small forwards and 22nd versus power forwards. So, do like Tobias Harris. He certainly has upside as long as his shots are falling. DeMar DeRozan, I expect him to be extremely popular tomorrow because LaMarcus Aldridge is not going to be playing here. So, and he's only 7K. Like, I've played DeMar DeRozan before when LaMarcus Aldridge was playing above 8K, and that was a smaller slate, but I've done it. And, I mean, only 7K with LaMarcus Aldridge out, it seems like a pretty much a gimme play. And if you take LaMarcus Aldridge off the court, his numbers read 1.27 points per minute with a 33.5% usage rate, and that's up from 1.13 points per minute with a 27% usage rate. So certainly gets a really big bump when LaMarcus Aldridge is off the court. 7K, that's just a bit too cheap. And game versus Dallas, which I believe will have a higher total to it, you can certainly look his way. I think he's a very, very good option. Robert Covington, he's just been scoring 30 fantasy points plus every single night. So just ride the hot hand. Love the matchup versus Memphis. He does a little bit of everything. He can shoot some threes, so get some blocks, some steals, rebounds, assists. Does a little bit of everything. I always like players like that because it makes it safer for cash games instead of just being scoring reliant. But you got to like the matchup versus Memphis. They're bad in all aspects on defense. On the year, he's been about a point per minute guy. Fast-paced game. Yeah, he's a fine lineup filler. Not going to my way to play Robert Covington, but hey, if I only have 6,200 left in my lineup, you can throw him in. Would not feel bad about that at all. Evan Fournier, just because he's playing Atlanta, it's a tight 2.5-point spread and 114 total for the Magic. That's much higher than their season average. So, yeah, I mean, if you look at Atlanta's DVP chart, 26 versus shooting guards, 30 versus small forwards. If you're on the Magic tomorrow, you're in a good matchup, so you're in play for DFS purposes. Deontay Murray, he comes in at 5,900. He's been playing pretty darn well recently. I believe it was the last game he had a flop, if I remember correctly. But besides that, he's had a couple of 40-point games. He's been playing pretty well. And if you take LaMarcus Aldridge off the court, everyone pretty much gets a bump here. Murray would be at 1.16 points per minute with a 20% usage rate. So numbers are very strong. It's a pretty fair price tag of $5,900 for how well he's been playing. Like the matchup versus Dallas, this should be a pretty decent game for fantasy purposes. And honestly, if you want to go with a Spurs stack and run back with Luka, I think that's going to be a pretty good way to go tomorrow. And I think it's also going to be a popular way to go tomorrow. But yeah, Murray's fine. And as you can see, his numbers go from 1.09 to 1.16, and the usage rate bumps up as well. So nothing against Murray. Jared Allen, he's another guy that's been balling out the past few games. I believe the last 2 games he's at around 40 fantasy points, and he gets an elite matchup here versus Washington. 235 total, definitely want exposure to this game. Now, Jared Allen's the ultimate GPP play. His minutes are all over the place. He never plays huge minutes. And, I mean, he can have these games where he scores like 13, 15 points, and he can also have these games where he scores 60 points. He is just all over the spectrum. That's what makes him the ultimate GPP play, but he's certainly got upside. It's a fast-paced game. Washington, they suck defensively. They rank 25th versus centers, and on the year, he's been a good point per minute player. He's been good point per minute wise. That's what I'm trying to say. They rank at he is 1.09 points per minute with a 15% usage rate. So yeah, Jared Allen, definitely think he's in play for tournaments. You could get away with it in cash games because of the price tag, but I feel more comfortable with him in tournaments. Josh Richardson, he's going to play all the minutes he can handle. No Ben Simmons. Love the matchup versus Cleveland as a shooting guard. If you head over to the DVP chart, they rank 30th versus shooting guards and 20th versus small forwards. So you got to love the matchup here for Josh Richardson. He feels like a pretty safe play here because the 76ers just get such a bump, or all the other players get such a bump when Ben Simmons is off the court. If you look at Josh Richardson's numbers without Ben Simmons, he's at 0.84 points per minute with a 21.6% usage rate. So yeah, Josh Richardson going to play all the minutes he can handle. I think he's going to be a pretty solid play versus Cleveland because it's just such a good matchup for all the 76ers. Gorgie Deng, he's had 2 straight games of over 30 fantasy points. He's been playing pretty well. There's not going to be any Brandon Clark in this game. And there's also not going to be any Jaren Jackson, so he's going to be forced into some decent minutes. Now, they did raise his price tag. He was in the 3K range, and now he's all the way up to 5,200. Sorry, my mouth is dry. I had a cough. I'm going to drink some water really quick. But I believe I was just talking about Gorgie Deng. Yeah, they raised his price tag. But he's pretty good point per minute wise, and he has been playing well. And if he can get over 30 fantasy points again at 5,200, we'll take it. I mean, I know they raised his price tag, but we'll take it. And you got to love the game environment here. And Houston, I mean, we just know they're not very good defensively. They rank 13th versus centers, 27th versus power forwards, but they also got rid of Clint Capella, who's one of the better defender players. So now you got PJ Tucker playing the center spot. So I don't mind Gorgie Deng. Now the problem is Houston's going to play small ball, so maybe Gorgie Deng doesn't play the most minutes in the world, especially if they're playing small ball. So that could be a little bit of concern. But if he gets about 23 to 25 minutes, I think he'll be fine. But I guess there would be concern if they do end up, playing small ball. But we'll see. They have a lack of big men, so they might just be forced to play in minutes. But on the year, he's at 1.17 points per minute, 18% usage rate. I mean, solid numbers when he's on the court. Problem is he doesn't usually play, but you got Jaren Jackson out and Brandon Clark, so going to be forced into some minutes. Al Horford, he's only 5K. They didn't really raise his price tag too much. He was 4,500 in the last game, played 30 minutes, which was nice. So I think we can go right back to the well here. He's only 5K, and you got to love the matchup versus Cleveland. And like if this game stays close, I mean, these 76ers are going to hit value for sure. I just have concerns because I'm a Cleveland sports fan, and I know the Cavs are just hot garbage. Now, I know they took the Heat to overtime, which was shocking, but hey, it happens sometimes. I don't like projecting blowouts, and it's only 7.5 point spread, so I'm not really too concerned about that. I just have a hard time seeing Cleveland stay in games, but it's certainly possible here, and Vegas doesn't expect a blowout, so I guess I'll side with them there, but there is concern. But if you look at his numbers on the season without Ben Simmons, he is at 1 point per minute exactly, and a 20% usage rate. So if he's going to get about 30 minutes in this game, I think it's a safe assumption he can get about 30 fantasy points. And if you add in the really good matchup versus Cleveland, if you look over to the DVP chart, Cleveland does rank 22nd versus power forwards, 21st versus centers. I think he's a pretty good play. And he's not just scoring dependent. He does a little bit of everything in the stat sheet. He did not have a good scoring game last time out. Still didn't crush it because he got the rebounds, he got the assist, he'll throw in the occasional steal and block. So Al Horford, I think he's a very safe play at 5K. You look for him in cash games and GPPs. Dillon Brooks, he is on a massive cold streak. Like, I believe he's scored in the teens for a while now, like a long while. He's not been playing well at all. But it's your opportunity to buy low. I know he keeps burning everybody, but 4,700 matchup versus Houston. If you're going to hop on board, this is the time. He's really, really cheap. I can't see him getting too much cheaper this season unless he just continues this downfall, but I think he's going to break out of it eventually. And there's no Jaren Jackson. There's no Brandon Clark. So, he's going to have to step up, especially if Memphis wants to stay in this game. They are 10-point dogs, but I don't mind it. He should get about 30 minutes. And, fast-paced games suit him well. He's a guy that's not afraid to take a lot of shots. He's got a 24% usage rate, 0.9 points per minute. I know he's been terrible, but if you want to play him in GPPs, you can. Cash games, no thank you. Mo Wagner, 4,500. He had an amazing game last time out. Davis Bertans got ruled out, so we ended up getting extended minutes. Now, these minutes are projecting Davis Bertans in. I just had him on here in case Bertans misses because they didn't really raise his price too much. He's only 4,500. I believe he was, 3,900 in the last game. I'd still pay 4,500 for him, especially as a big versus Brooklyn. We know how bad Brooklyn is versus big men. If you ever see the DVP chart, they do rank 27 versus centers, which I guess, Wagner's power forward / center, and they actually are pretty good versus power forwards, but not too concerned about that. We have a high total here. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Mo Wagner did a little bit of everything in the stat sheet last time out. I actually thought he was going to mess around and get a triple-double for a little bit. He had 8 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, I think, at one point. I thought he might do it, but ended up not doing it. But if Davis Bertans is out, we can certainly look his way. They raised his price tag a little bit, but he's been good point per minute wise this year. 1.08 points per minute with a 20% usage rate. I don't hate him if Bertans happens to miss because he is currently listed as questionable. Like I said, Kelly Oubre's out, so a lot of these Phoenix Suns players are going to get some extra minutes, including Mikal Bridges, who should get over 30 minutes here. Numbers aren't great this year, but if you take Oubre off the court, sorry, I have the numbers listed here on paper. Mikal Bridges is at 0.74 points per minute with a 12% usage rate. Not strong, but he's going to be forced into minutes, and this is a pretty decent game environment here versus the Clippers, so I don't hate him. He's not an exciting play at all, but he's going to be forced into minutes, and really when you're this cheap, that's kind of all you can ask for most of the time, unless we're really lucky with value plays, which we kind of are today. So I guess he's not necessary because we had some really good value with the Spurs and a couple of other Phoenix Suns. Right below him, DeAnthony Melton. I liked him a lot in the last game he played in. He sucked, got 6 points. I like him to bounce back here at lower ownership. Should play around 25 minutes, and he's been pretty solid point per minute wise given his price tag this season. It's going to be a fast-paced game. Definitely want exposure to it. And he's been over a point per minute. Like I said, 1.06 points per minute, 20% usage rate. He can be pretty hit or miss, but the upside's the upside's there. He has 40-point potential at this price tag. So don't mind Anthony Melton. He could go 10x. Not expecting it, but he has that kind of upside. PJ Tucker, he's the least exciting play in DFS. I say this every single time I mention him, but I have to. I feel obligated to. He's a terrible guy to have to watch on your fantasy roster because he stands in the corner, does absolutely nothing, and he'll shoot the occasional corner three, and sometimes it goes in, sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't go in, you're sad because he probably ends the game with like 12 points. I mean, there's some games he won't score. I mean, we've seen it. He didn't score like in 2 games a while ago. He just did not score points. He doesn't do anything. He took like 1 shot. But he's going to play big minutes here, and man, it's just, I hate the numbers on him. 0.62 points per minute with an 8.7% usage rate. I'm not sure if there's anyone in the NBA that plays as many minutes as he does and has a lower usage rate. I could check it. I mean, I could check it right after this video, but man, he's got to be right down there with the lowest of the low. I can't imagine anyone's lower. Maybe someone like Gary Harris, but I think he has a usage rate above 8%. I know Gary Harris is a low usage player. I mean, Nikola Bridges is only at 12%, so he's close, but I'm trying to think of anyone off the top of my head. You know, just some of those guys that stay on the corners, but I'm just not thinking about them at the moment. But yeah, PJ Tucker, he's going to play big minutes. I mean, if he hits a couple of corner threes, he'll be fine. So I love the matchup versus Memphis, but just know what you're getting into with PJ Tucker. There's better value plays on this slate, but I just like bringing up PJ Tucker because he's fun to talk about. Patty Mills. So all these guys are on the Spurs are going to get some extra minutes. So Patty Mills, expect him to get about close to 30. He's only 3,300. His numbers on the year at 0.83 points per minute, 20% usage rate. If you take Marquese Bridges off the court, Mills is at 0.97 points per minute. So it gets actually a pretty big boost if you take Aldridge off and a 22.8% usage rate. So Patty Mills actually gets to get a pretty nice boost with no LMA. And matchup versus Dallas, I think it's going to be a pretty solid game for fantasy purposes. So Patty Mills is fine. Rudy Gay, again, all these guys are going to get some bumps here. He's not going to play huge minutes, but I got him for a little bit over 20. You take Aldridge off the court, numbers are pretty solid. That's a huge sample size, 603-minute sample size, and that was the same with Patty Mills as well. It's not a small sample size. That was a really big sample size. But Rudy Gay, he's at 1.08 points per minute, which is up from 0.97 points per minute, and his usage rate's at 23.2%. So very good numbers without LaMarcus Aldridge on the court. And probably my favorite play here is Jakob Poeltl. Yeah, I think that's how you say it, Jakob Poeltl. Back in the day, I used to thought it was like Podol or something. It's Jakob Poeltl, according to Basketball Reference. I've never heard his name announced on TV, but I looked it up. That's what it says, how you announce it. So you can just think of it as Turtle if you ever forget. But for some reason, Basketball Reference does not like to pull up his stats. I have no idea why. Someone told me it's because of the accent marks, but I have a system on here that takes away accent marks and matches it up for me. He's like the only guy in the world that it doesn't match up for, so I don't understand why. But I did bring up the numbers from a different website that will tell you his numbers without LaMarcus Aldridge on the court. And on an 851-minute sample size. 851 minutes. So this is not a small sample size or anything. He has a low usage rate at 13%, but he's at 1.13 points per minute. He's going to play close to 30 minutes in this game. He is my favorite value play on the slate. And he's going up against Dallas. It's not the greatest matchup in the world, but hey, he's only 3,200. He's going to pay off his price tag. So unless he gets hurt or something, which I can't. If I could tell you he's going to get hurt or not, we'd be living on our own islands. But I can't. But if he gets all the minutes he's projected to get, he's going to pay off his price tag pretty easily. And then Dario Saric, got him for like 25-ish minutes. I mean, he's only 3,200. No Kelly Oubre, good matchup versus the Clippers. I don't mind him. His numbers without Oubre on the court would be 0.95 points per minute, 18% usage rate. So gets a nice little bump there. Only 3,200. I don't mind him as a value play. That's going to be it for this player-by-player breakdown. Or not player-by-player, but my player pool breakdown as of right now. Early look. But before we get out of here, I do want to talk about overlaydfs.com. Alright, so guys, if you've been watching my channel, you already know what this is. But if you are new to the channel, this is overlaydfs.com. They were kind enough to reach out to me and ask me to, just promote their website on my channel. But I would not recommend it to you guys if I didn't play there myself. I've been trying it out. I really do enjoy it. I play there every single night. It's a good supplement from my Draftkings that I play every single night. It's a more casual experience, which I do like. You don't have to worry about any sharks there, like Chipotle, max entering all your contests. There's no salary cap restrictions. You don't have to build a lineup or anything. It's just a pick-em based website. So whoever you think's going to score more points in that given matchup, you pick that person. So, for example, this is tonight's slate. If you thought Van Vliet was going to outscore Eric Bledsoe, which I did, he did not, but you picked that guy, and if he would have happened to outscore Eric Bledsoe, you win that matchup. As you can see, I lost that matchup. But De'Aaron Fox, I picked him over Andrew Wiggins. Yeah, Andrew Wiggins, and he's going to win that matchup, right, most likely. So if if he scores more points than the guy, you win that matchup. It's as simple as that. And my most favorite thing about Overlay DFS is the payout structure. So if you finish in the top 10% of your contest, you win 9 extra money. To 9 extra money on DraftKings, you almost have to win the whole thing. So I love the payout structure here. And they also have a jackpot, which is getting close to $13,000. $13,000. There's no strings attached. If you go 12-0 on your picks, you win almost $13,000. It's $12,540 right now. I assume that's going to get closer to $13,000. And more people are playing every single day. I noticed in these contests, when I first started playing, there was not a lot of people entering these contests, but it seems like a lot more people are entering. So I like the growth that we're seeing. So guys, get on over here. Do not miss out on the chance to hit this jackpot, because when someone hits it, it's resetting. I don't know exactly what it's going to reset to, but you do not want to miss out on a chance to win $13,000 just on picking players. If you think you can pick 12 players right, you win $13,000. It's as simple as that. They also have a couple of cool challenges going on. So if you, God forbid, happen to go 0-12 on your picks one night, they'll give you $500. And if you lose 20 days in a row, not consecutive days, but like say you play once a week for 20 weeks in a row, they will refund every single dollar that you deposited on their site. That's their Slump Buster Challenge. So they're basically daring you guys to lose. But yeah, definitely like playing on overlaydfs.com. It's fun to sweat the games out on here. And like I said, it's a good supplement to DraftKings. You don't have to quit playing DraftKings just to play Overlay. You can play both. So really do enjoy it. And for example, this is the $22 Double Deuce contest. If you happen to finish in the top 10%, which it looks like I'm not going to, unfortunately, I'm close, because I think I'm going to have one game switch where I end up going 8-4. We'll see if that changes anything else. But you would have won $180, and it's as simple as that, guys. So check it out, overlaydfs.com. Really do enjoy playing over there. And that's going to be it for this video, guys. If it was helpful, remember to leave a like. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out. Really appreciate it. If you are interested in the NASCAR content, I'm gonna be pumping out a lot of NASCAR content over this weekend. So check it out, guys. Support me over on Patreon if you want. Hit me up on Twitter. I'm at ChrisPennell16, and I'll see you guys in the next video.